Imagine you are a highly trained police officer standing in the middle of a tense, chaotic crime scene. Your heart is pounding, adrenaline is flooding your veins, and every second matters. And right beside you, absolutely calm, absolutely focused, absolutely ready, is a dog that will not respond to a single word unless that word is spoken in German. And the question you have to ask yourself right now, before we go any deeper into this video, is why? Why on this entire earth, in this vast English-speaking country called the United States of America, would the most powerful law enforcement agencies in the world choose to communicate with their animals in a completely different language? And the answer, once you truly understand it, will change the way you look at dogs, language, training, and human psychology forever. To understand this completely, we have to go back in history to a country where the relationship between humans and working dogs was taken more seriously than anywhere else in the world, and that country is Germany. Because Germany, particularly in the late 1800s and early 1900s, developed a systematic, scientific, and deeply serious approach to dog breeding and training that was unlike anything that existed before it. And the most famous product of that movement is the German Shepherd, a breed that was deliberately engineered by a man named Max von Stephanitz in 1899, who believed that a dog should not simply exist as a companion, but should serve a working purpose with total intelligence, total loyalty, and total obedience. And what he built was not just a dog breed, he built a philosophy of training, and that philosophy was recorded, taught, and passed down entirely in the German language, which means that when American law enforcement agencies began importing these dogs from Germany and Europe in the mid-20th century, the dogs arrived already trained, already conditioned, and already hardwired to respond to commands that were spoken in German. Words like Sitz, which means sit, Platz, which means down, bleib, which means stay, Fass, which means bite or apprehend, and aus, which means release. And the Americans quickly realized something extraordinarily practical, which is that it was far easier to teach their officers a handful of German words than it was to completely retrain a perfectly trained dog from scratch. But here is where it gets even more fascinating, because the use of German commands is not just a historical accident or a matter of convenience, it serves a deep and deliberate psychological and safety function that modern canine units continue to rely upon every single day. And think about it this way. Imagine a police dog is deployed in a crowded urban environment, and bystanders are everywhere, panicking people, curious civilians, well-meaning strangers. And one of those strangers, in a moment of chaos or confusion, yells stop or sit or down at the dog, perhaps thinking they are helping, or perhaps, in a worst-case scenario, a criminal suspect deliberately shouts English commands to confuse or redirect the animal during an apprehension. And you can immediately see the catastrophic danger that creates, because a dog trained on English commands is vulnerable to interference from anyone who speaks English, which in the United States is essentially everyone. But a dog trained on German commands can only be directed by the specific officer who has been trained to use those commands in exactly the right tone, rhythm, and context, which means the German language itself becomes a security layer, an encrypted communication channel between officer and animal that the general public simply cannot access or accidentally trigger. And this is not a theoretical concern, it is a documented operational reality that canine trainers and police departments have cited repeatedly as one of the central justifications for maintaining German as the language of command. Now, let us go even deeper, because there's a linguistic dimension to this story that most people never consider, and it has to do with the way dogs actually process human speech. Because dogs do not understand language the way humans do. They do not comprehend grammar, meaning, or vocabulary in the cognitive sense. Instead, they are exquisitely sensitive to the sound patterns, the sharp consonants, the tonal quality, and the rhythmic structure of the words they hear. hear. And German as a language has a phonetic character that is particularly well suited to command training because German words tend to be short, crisp, consonant-heavy, and tonally distinct from one another, which means that when a dog hears Sitz versus Platz versus Fass, those three words sound so completely different from each other that the dog's auditory processing system can distinguish them with remarkable precision, even in noisy, high-stress environments, a battlefield, a crowded street, an indoor raid, whereas longer, softer, more phonetically similar English words can blur together in a dog's perception under stress. And this is not merely speculation, but is supported by research in animal cognition and has been confirmed by experienced canine trainers who consistently report that dogs respond with greater speed and reliability to sharp monosyllabic commands than to longer or softer alternatives, which means the German language quite literally speaks to dogs in a frequency they are built to hear. And today, even as American breeders have developed their own lines of working dogs, and even as some departments now use Czech, Dutch, or Belgian-trained animals because the same logic applies to those languages, which share similar phonetic qualities and carry the same tradition of serious, structured working dog training, the German command system has remained the dominant standard across canine units in police departments from New York to Los Angeles to small-town America. And the officers who work with these dogs go through rigorous certification programs where they must learn not just the words, but the exact tone, timing, and emotional consistency required to make those commands effective. Because a dog trained at a professional kennel has been conditioned to respond not merely to the sound of a word, but to the confident, calm, authoritative delivery of that word, which means a handler who shouts "Fass" in panic or uncertainty may get a slower, more confused response than a handler who delivers it with the steady precision of someone who has trained thousands of hours alongside their animal. And this is the final and perhaps most profound insight of this entire story, that the German language in canine training is not just a tool for the dog, it is a discipline for the human. It forces the officer to slow down, to be deliberate, to be precise, to communicate with absolute clarity, and in doing so, it makes the bond between officer and dog not just functional, but almost sacred. So the next time you see a police dog walking calmly beside an officer, responding instantly to a single whispered word, never flinching, never distracted, always present, understand that what you are witnessing is not just an animal following orders, but the result of over a century of human dedication to the idea that communication, precise, clear, disciplined, and consistent communication, is the foundation of every great partnership, and that sometimes the most powerful thing in the world is not a weapon or a law or a technology, but a single word, spoken correctly in the right language at exactly the right moment, because that is what makes a dog not just an animal, but a guardian, and that is why American police dogs are trained in German.